Please be seated. The court is now back in session. And I'd like to hand the floor now to the defense team for Kiel Sampon. Rather, the defense team for Nguyen Chia to put questions to the witness. And counsel, you have 45 minutes to put questions to this witness.
I didn't hear what you said. How many minutes, Mr. President?
45 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I am the counsel of Nguyen Chia, International Council, and I would like to ask you some questions. Let me start with the following subject. You've answered questions in relation to captured Vietnamese soldiers. You said that your unit wasn't involved in any capture of Vietnamese soldiers. I would like to ask you about what happened, if you know, in the situation that Vietnamese troops had captured Khmer soldiers. Do you know if that happened, and if yes, what would happen to those Khmer soldiers?
I speak only within the limit of my unit, because outside my unit I did not have a grasp. My unit at the front battlefield, and none of my soldiers was captured by the UN side.
Have you ever heard what may have happened to Khmer soldiers during the invasion of troops in December 1977 or thereafter? In other words, in the 6 or 7 months before you came, have you ever been told by any commander or anyone else about what had happened to Khmer soldiers who were captured by the invading Vietnamese troops?
Before I went to the border, I did not hear that the UN troops arrested Khmer soldiers. In my division, where the Sương was the commander, he told me that the UN had entered Cambodia and that we had to be vigilant. But I was not told about the capture of Khmer soldiers by the UN side.
Let me read to you an excerpt from a book written by a British person who has also testified in this courtroom as an expert. Mr. President, I'll be referring to E3/9, Philip Short's book, on page 377, English ERN 00396585, and French 00639949, no Khmer. We can read the following, and let me quote. In mid-December 1977, 50,000 Vietnamese troops, backed by armor and artillery, poured across the border along a front stretching more than 100 miles from the Parrot's Beak in Sveiring to Snol in the north. In the first week, they met little resistance and penetrated about 12 miles into Cambodian territory. Khmer Rouge soldiers who fell into their hands were systematically killed. End of quote. Mr. Witness, is this something that you heard during the December 77 offensive? Vietnamese troops systematically executed Khmer Rouge soldiers?
In December 77, as you stated that the UN soldiers came to kill the Khmer soldiers, I did not receive any announcement about that. What I received was that the border situation at the east was not great, and that we had to prepare ourselves for any eventual combat, but I was not told any further reasons for that.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Now let me follow up something that you were asked about by the prosecutor. That is about the type of combat that you encountered as of June 1978. You confirmed that there was heavy artillery firing coming from the Vietnamese troops. You also talked about aerial bombing. You talked about planes. Let me read to you what another expert of this court has written. That is Nayan Chanda in his book, Mr. President, E3/2 376, on page 318, which is English ERN 00192503, Khmer 00191660, French 00237154. He writes, and I quote, in June 1978, when Vietnam began its unpublicized aerial bombing of Cambodia, flying as many as 30 sorties a day. And then he goes on about some diplomatic issues. I'm interested in 30 sorties a day. In other words, 30 times a day, Vietnam came bombing DK territory. Is that something that you recall, that the aerial bombing had a frequency of 30 sorties a day?
Regarding the aerial bombardment, it did happen. However, I cannot recall how many days that we were bombarded, or how many times per day that we were bombarded.
I understand, but 30 times a day, does that sound accurate to you, or is that difficult for you to say?
Referring to the situation at the time, I cannot recall about the situation, and it is also in terms of distance far from Snol to Svay Rieng. And I did not hear people talking about how many times a day the bombardment took place.
That's all right. It's a long time ago, Mr. Witness. Let me read something else from Chanda's book, and I will ask you if that is something that you were informed of in your capacity as commander. That is page 218 of Chanda's book, E3/2376, English 001924003, French 002378082, Khmer 00191553. Chanda refers to April, May. That's before you arrived, and he says the following: within 4 months of the rupture in Vietnam's diplomatic relations with Cambodia, a string of secret camps had sprung up in South Vietnam to recruit and train a guerrilla army. A bit further, former US military bases at Xuan Loc and Long Giao near Ho Chi Minh City, and a helicopter base at Vy Tan in the Mekong Delta were secretly transformed into new bases to launch a clandestine war against Pol Pot. On April 22, 1978, the 1st Brigade of the Khmer Dissident Army was commissioned in a secret ceremony. By the end of 1978, several such brigades were ready to join the Vietnamese army in its push against Cambodia. End of quote. Were you aware, Mr. Witness, of secret camps with Khmer insurgents participating in a clandestine war against DK?
I did not hear that, nor did I know along the border between the UN and Cambodia there were activities by those who oppose the Democratic Cambodia regime.
You said your unit never captured Vietnamese soldiers. Did you also never capture Khmer insurgents who were assisting the Vietnamese troops?
In my units there were no insurgents, and we never arrested any insurgent along the border area. If you talk about rebellions that took place at the rear, I do not have any say for that.
Maybe I didn't formulate my question properly. I wasn't referring to your unit, but I was rather referring to former East Zone units joining the Vietnamese troops. Is that did you ever encounter such troop, and if yes, did you ever arrest such rebellion troops coming from the former East Zone or coming from the East Zone?
When I arrived in 1978, the situation to the eastern part of Svay Rieng was that there was no rebellious activity at all.
Well, let me move to early September 1978, and let me read to you something from that same book from Nayan Chanda to see if that somehow could refresh your memory. Again, E3/2376, page 255, English ERN 00192440, French 00237111, Khmer 00191597. And this is what Nayan Chanda wrote about events in early September 1978. In early September, the Vietnamese launched another tank-led operation inside Cambodia. The objective this time was to contact Heng Samrin and his followers hiding in the forest and escort them back to Vietnam. End of quote. Have you ever heard forces belonging to former Division 4 of the East Zone commander Heng Samrin hiding in the forest? Have you ever been instructed that this might have been the case?
Regarding the situation along the border area, or whether the force belongs to Heng Samrin hiding in the forest, I did not hear anything about that. I did not hear that any specific location was the location where those people were hiding. We were there to engage in combat against the Yun side. And my situation at the time was to know about the situation that happened with within my unit and to combat the other side. And we did not have any communication with other units.
No problem, Mr. Witness. I'm just trying to see the breadth of your knowledge. One other thing I would like to read out to you is again an excerpt from Chanda. It's a page before, page 254, English ERN 00192439, French 00237111, and Khmer 001911596. Before I read the quote, I understand that you didn't have normal radio, but nevertheless I would like to read this quote to you. Beginning in late June, Hanoi, or the Vietnamese, had begun Khmer language broadcasts calling for an uprising. Voices of known Khmer cadres who were believed to be dead came over the radio and provided some assurance. And then he refers to Heng Samrin's brother, Heng Samkai. Were you informed in your capacity as commander about the existence of Khmer language broadcasts calling for an uprising in DK?
No, I did not hear it. Nor did anyone come to make an announcement regarding this matter. We were there at the location, and when we knew that the Yun side had outnumbered us, we knew that we would be defeated, because the situation became more chaotic in late 1978 or early 79.
Very well, no problem. Were you at all informed about who these Vietnamese military troops in fact were? Did you know, for instance, from which military region in Vietnam the troops that you had to deal with were coming from? Were you aware of such details about the way the Vietnamese enemy was structured?
Regarding the Vietnamese troops, we knew that they came from the eastern side, but I did not have a grasp about their structure.
Did you, for instance, know that the forces that you were dealing with were mainly from the Vietnamese 7th military region, and that, for instance, its commander was called General Tran Von Tra? I mean, those kind of basic information. Were you aware of this?
We would need a reference.
Yes, I will be. It is Chanda's book, English ERN 001 92378, French 002 37061, Khmer 001915525. And at that same page he also speaks about Deputy Commander of the 7th Military Region. But let me limit myself to the commander, the person who apparently personally commanded the assault on Saigon in 1975, General Tran Van Tra. Is that a name that was at all known to you, or that he commanded the 7th Military Region?
At that time, regarding the military structure of the opponent or their commander, I did not have any knowledge about it. We only knew that the UN troops came from National Road number 1, and later on we fled. So I did not know the name of the Vietnamese commander, since I did not have any radio to listen to.
No problem, Mr. Witness. Let me follow up on something that you said yesterday, answering a question from my colleague of the Kyew Sampan defense team. Yesterday at around 15:51 in the afternoon. This is what you said, and I just want to know if I understand correctly what you meant. You said, you asked me to talk about the period between 1975 and 1979. It's difficult to talk about the situation within the scope of this period, because the story has connections with situations before that time period. What exactly did you mean when you said this yesterday, Mr. Witness?
Regarding my previous statement, is that the war started since 1970. It continued to 1975, and it kept on going until 1978. So actually, it started since 1970.
But do you mean the war between CPK forces or front forces and Lon Nol, or between CPK forces and Vietnamese communist forces?
It is difficult to provide you a clarification in this matter.
I understand. Let me ask it differently. Do you know anything about clashes between Vietnamese communist troops and Khmer communist troops before 1975?
No, I did not.
Well, just for the record, and maybe somehow it could jog your memory. An Australian expert who testified here last week wrote in his book E3/7338, English ERN only 01001722, the following. During the 2 years after the Lon Nol coup, in spite of Hanoi's careful attempts to guide the Cambodian insurgency, as the size of the Cambodian guerrilla forces expanded rapidly, there were frequent clashes between Vietnamese communists and the Khmer Rouge. End of quote. Frequent clashes, maybe even up till 200 clashes. Is that something that you heard of? Is that something that you as a soldier knew about, or not at all?
Allow me to clarify it. I was to the west side of the country, that is in the west zone, and this class that you spoke about is or happened in the east zone, so I did not have any knowledge about that, since we were very far away from each other.
I understand. No problem, Mr. Witness. Let me move on to another subject, and that I think will be my final subject. You briefly mentioned the name of the Minister of Defense and Commander of all forces, Son Sen. In your testimony before this chamber on the 24th of April 2013, just before 10:10 in the morning, you said the following: I met Mr. Son Sen on some occasions when we discussed plans to deal with the Vietnamese. And a bit further, I met him during the time when we were planning to make sure that the Vietnamese troops would not be invading Cambodia deep inside the territory of Cambodia again. Do you recall saying this, Mr. Witness, around 3.5 years ago in this courtroom?
I did make some mention regarding this point. We spoke to Sunset, and however, regarding the portion that you said that the Yun enter Cambodia, I don't recall that I mentioned this point.
That's not terribly important, but you do remember talking to Son Sen about the situation with Vietnam.
Yes, I did.
I realize it's a very long time ago, but are you able to recall maybe not the exact things he said, but roughly what he said, what kind of words he used when it came to Vietnam? Is that something that is possible, or is it a long time ago?
From what I heard from him, he says that the Yun entered our territory, and our troops numbers were less than them. Our weaponry was also less than them, and that's what he said.
Let me refer you to a document that has actually written down Son Sen's literal words in relation to Vietnam. These are words that he uttered when he was speaking to another military unit in 1976, Division 920. Mr. President, with your leave, I would like to show an excerpt from document E3/799. These are minutes of a plenary meeting of the 920th Division, 7 September 76. Specifically, English ERN 001-84781, French 003-23916, Khmer 00083-160, and I have this specific Khmer page in my hand, and with your leave, I would like to provide it to the witness.
Yes, you can proceed.
While you read that excerpt, let me read in English what we have in our version of this document. And he says, "Our revolution is a socialist revolution, and already is a deep one. So, toward Vietnam, we take the following stances. 1. We won't be the ones who make trouble. 2. But we must defend our territory absolutely, and absolutely not let anyone either take it or violate it. 3. If Vietnam invades, we will ask them to withdraw, and if they do not withdraw, we will attack. Our direction is to fight both politically and militarily." Mr. Witness, are you in a position to recall whether Son Sen in his meetings with you uttered similar words, similar things as you just read in that document before you?
for 920. I have never heard of that unit, and I do not know it. In the meetings which I attended during the time that Sun Sen was in the meeting, he was mentioning about the efforts to protect our country. He said that we needed to protect and take care of our home country.
Just to be clear, I understand that you have nothing to do with Division 920, but these are words that he used when he was addressing a plenary meeting of Division 920. And my question to you is, the words that were noted or written down, were these the same kind of things he told you?
I told you already, he did not mention these words to me. He said we had to protect our home country or our territory.
I understand. Let me make it a little bit more concrete and more closer to you. Already on a few occasions you have been confronted with testimony from Mies Voon, who was also in Division 1 of the West Zone. I know you don't know him, but nevertheless he gave some evidence that I would like to read out to you. Mr. President, I'll be reading from E3/8752, English ERN 00849510 and 11, French 013092292, and Khmer 0073339. This person, this West Zone military person, talks simultaneously about not only about Son Sen but also about Tamok. And this is what he said. Since the start of the struggle, there was only Tamok. Later on, they created army, air forces, and navy. During that time, Son Sen was the chief of the general staff, and Tamok was the commander of battlefields. Tamok went directly to the fields, and Son Sen just gave commands. Since Tamok went directly to the fields, he was both the commander-in-chief and the commander of the battlefields. And now comes the important part. At the borders, he gave instructions on enemies from outside. He said that, quote, "We must defend our territory and we must be patient. Do not fight back when they fire off a few shots. Do not fight back. Remain calm. If they fire off a few shots and we fire back, it means we will create a very big problem." End of quote. Although from the testimony it is not entirely clear whether this is Tamok speaking or Son Sen, but for the question that doesn't matter. Was it also an instruction to you and your forces in Svay Ring in June 1978 to be patient, to remain calm, and not to create big problems?
That is the instruction given to the units. As I said, the situations at the border became very tough. We were told to be ready, and we had to get ourselves ready. And perhaps there were instructions.
Let me make sure there's no misunderstanding. I refer to you what Son Sen told another division. I refer to what another commander said about the instructions. Let me read to you something from 1975, an order, an instruction which was directed to all cadres, in this case in particular to all the revolutionary youth. Mr. President, I'll be referring to E3/749. That's an issue number 8 from Revolutionary Youth, August 1975. More particularly, I'll be referring to English ERN 00532686, French 00593942, and Khmer 003991114. So this is what has been instructed to every single youth cadre or soldier, I believe, I presume, in August 75. Quote, along the borders, it is imperative to be vigilant and not do anything to cause trouble with the foreign neighboring people. However, it is also imperative to absolutely defend and counter and not allow them to violate or insult our nation and our people. End of quote. Mr. Witness, do you agree with me that the policy as to how to react to Vietnamese incursion or Vietnamese aggression was always crystal clear to all cadres from the very beginning?
What you said, that after we defeated USA in 1975, I heard what those people says, that we lived in our country, we did not have to cause any problem to other country, and we did not need to go into other country. That is what I heard from other units.
And then my final question, Mr. President, and that is following up what you said yesterday. At around 1439, my colleague asked the question, and let me repeat it. So if I understand you correctly, it was only when the Vietnamese crossed the border and entered Cambodian territory that you could attack them. Is that correct? And then your answer is yes. Now, on 3 other or 4 other occasions, in English you use the same word, which is a very interesting word for me. At 1509, a little bit after 1509, yesterday you said, if there was any incursion, we had to contain them. At 1513, we had to be independent in our own spearhead and try to contain them and to stop their advancement. 1525, in order to contain any advancement. And 1544, we were independent. If the enemy attacked us in a tense fashion, then we had to contain them. This word comes back often yesterday in your testimony, Mr. Witness. Can you expand on that word, to contain them?
Sorry, Counsel, just to be sure that since you are focusing on a word, he also used the same Khmer word every time.
Not always.
But then the question is a bit of a problem.
Well, that's correct. Let me rephrase. In English, we have a word that you use, and let me ask it open. Your duty as commander was to contain the Vietnamese. What did you mean when you used that word?
To be mastery means that when we were attacked by the enemies, we had to be master on our own. We had to be master at the battlefields. We need to control our forces so that there was no danger on our forces.
But does contain mean also to stop them and to chase them back in a proportionate manner, or what else? I mean, what specifically could it mean when you use that word or those words?
The word mastery means to control our own forces. We need to take care of our own forces and to try to control the situation. The upper echelon was not there with us all the time, so we needed to be master on our own to retreat and to attack. If the opposing forces were strong, we had to retreat and flee.
And then my final question, contain, meaning mastery of the situation. Does that reflect what Tamok or Son Sen apparently said, according to Ms. Voon, that you must defend the territory and must be patient, remain calm? Is that what you meant as well with the word containment or mastery?
I used the word mastery. The word mastery, as what he suggested, was to encourage us to fight, to engage in the combat. Although we know that we would be killed, and to be mastery, in my own sense, is to control the situation and to retreat or to attack the enemies as long as we seems practical.
Thank you, Mr. President.
President, the Chamber is grateful to you, Mr. Jun T. The hearing of your testimony has now come to a conclusion. Your testimony will contribute to the ascertainment of the truth. You may now be accused. You may return to anywhere you wish to go or to your residence. I wish you all the best. The Chamber is grateful to you as well. Duty Counsel Sok Chita, you may also be accused. Court officers, please work with the vessel to send Mr. T back to his residence or to any destination he wishes to go. Mr. Junti and Duty Counsel, you may now be accused. Next, the Chamber is hearing oral submissions of the party in relation to the request by the Council Nunjia in the afternoon of 25th October 2016. The Chamber received an email from the defense team for Mr. Nunjia in relation to the request, and the request is available in Khmer and English, document E448. The defense team for Mr. Nunjia is requesting the Chamber to admit to documents in the course of the hearing of testimony of a witness 1065. This morning, the Chamber informed the parties already that the Chamber was intended to hear the oral submissions and responses of parties. And first, the floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Nunjia to submit oral submissions in relation to the request. You may now proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Very briefly, I understood indeed that we have now filed this request, which we sent yesterday through email. Briefly, we request to the Chamber to admit into evidence 2 articles published by DC Cam, articles that we obtained from the public domain. It is a Searching for the Truth article from July 2015 regarding, I will not mention his name because we've also requested to hear them as witnesses, regarding a former bodyguard and grandson of the East Zone Secretary Sao Pim, and another Searching for the Truth article from a messenger and driver of Sao Pim. We were prompted to obtain these documents by a recent publication in the 9 September 2016 ECCC daily media clippings, and especially in the light of the appearance of a witness next week, we believe that both articles could contribute to the ascertainment of the truth, especially the parts where witnesses speak about the relationship between East Zone Chief Sao Pim and Ru Nim, and the frequency of their visits. As you know, one of our central arguments is that there was a rebellion organized by both Sao Pim and Ru Nim, and we believe that whatever those 2 people have to say in relation to Sao Pim might be not only relevant to that theory, but also to the upcoming witness, to TCW 1065, who will be testifying about East Zone Rebellion and the East Zone purges. So that's, in short, the background of our request.
President. And now the floor is given to the co-prosecutors to make the response to the request by Nunjia defense team.
Thank you, Mr. President. We don't have any objection to the admission of these articles from DC Cam, with one just proviso. Usually when DC Cam publishes articles like these in Searching for the Truth, they're based on full interviews that were done of these individuals. So I would just I guess our observation would be that if the articles are going to be admitted, some effort should be made. It's fairly easy with DC Cam just to inquire about the full interviews of these people, whether there are transcripts, and if so, I think those would need to be admitted also, and so that we actually have the transcript of what these individuals said. With respect to the request to call them as witnesses, certainly they have relevant information, but it's, in our view, a matter of discretion for the trial chamber whether it thinks it would be beneficial to hear them. I would just make 2 points. One, as we look at the descriptions of their evidence, we have a hard time seeing how this information helps the defense. It certainly does not seem to support any of the conspiracy theories that we've heard from them. Their evidence is relevant, however, so if the trial chamber thinks it would be helpful, we wouldn't have any objection. We would also observe that we are getting towards the end of this trial. We started this in October 2014. It's been 2 years, and I think I speak on behalf of our team that we're looking forward to finishing this trial in the near future. So, but we view the issue of whether to call these witnesses to be a matter of discretion for your honors.
President, thank you. And now, lead co-lawyers for civil parties.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will defer to the discretion of the chamber.
President, and what about the defense team for Mr. Kesamphon? Do you have any observation or response to the request by Nguyen Chie?
Mr. President, clearly we have no objection on behalf of Kesamphon's team, especially with reference to the witness that was announced and called by the chamber quite recently. So I think it's completely admissible to allow the Nguyen Chie team to question these witnesses at this stage.
2 very brief remarks in response, if I may, Mr. President. We are, in fact, in the process of trying to acquire the underlying interviews. As a matter of fact, I think we are at DC Cam right now, so hopefully we'll be able to achieve that. So if it's all right with you, then we will do this effort. Secondly, in response to the, of course, totally unfounded accusation of us coming up with conspiracy theories, we would withdraw this request immediately, Mr. President, if you were to summons the persons, of course, who are, in fact, very close to Sao Pim and whose testimony we've been seeking for the last 9 years. Testimony of Heng Samrin, Uk Bun Chun, Paul Sarun, etc., as laid down in paragraph 5 of our motion or request. These, of course, are much more important witnesses, and if they were coming, we wouldn't be having to deal with people like 2 TCW 1065 or the driver or bodyguard of Sao Pim.
President, the chamber is grateful to the submissions and responses of the parties regarding the request of the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chie. The chamber will take all the submissions and responses into consideration and will issue the ruling in due course. It is now time for the adjournment. The chamber will resume its hearings on Thursday, 27 October 2016 at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, the chamber will start to hear 2 TCW 1045. Please be informed and be on time. Security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused, Noonji and Kisampon, back to the ECCC detention facility and have them return into the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.